So we're starting with you, Kevin, since you're so keen on introductions?
Yes, I'm so keen on introductions because, as you can tell, I am not a strong female. But I have written them. I am Kevin J. Anderson. I'm science fiction fantasy author. I've written 15 books with Brian Herbert in the Dune series, which is one of the very first strong female characters in science fiction. This is Sisterhood of Dune, which has a very strong chick on the cover. But there are different kinds of strength for female characters, and I've got another really cool main character in this book, Clockwork Lives, which is not just pretty, but I co-wrote it with Neil Peart, the drummer from Rush, and it is about a woman who only wants a quiet and perfect life and is forced to come go through some pretty nasty adventures. So
I like that cover. I like that book.
It's very pretty.
Isn't it?
Very
You
pretty.
wrote that with the drummer from Rush?
I've written 3 things with the drummer from
I know
Rush.
that
All right,
kind of excites me.
my husband will be here. We'll talk later. He's a guitar player. We're musicians, and you've got a fan coming in the room at any moment.
Very
I can't
cool.
wait. How wonderful to meet you and know you.
Well,
Getting to
thank
know you.
No, you just want to know me because
to
I know somebody
know
else that
you.
your husband likes.
It doesn't hurt. However, I'm sure that writing that company means you've got a lot going on, and clearly you've been published
Yes.
quite a bit. So there you go.
I am Kelly Hu, and I have never been published. I am an actress. I do a lot of these awesome female characters, and thanks to people like you guys for writing these kind of characters, I would not have a career. I've been in a lot of these sort of comic book type series, including X-Men. I've actually been fortunate enough. Scorpion King. Yeah, that wasn't a comic, but that was a cool movie. But I've done X-Men. I play China White on Arrow, and I voiced a bunch of other characters. Like most of them, I can't even remember. Isn't that terrible? Like people will come up to me with DVDs to sign, and I'm like, I don't think I'm in that. And they're like, No, you are. I was like, Oh, okay. Because you know when you do like voiceover, because I do a lot of voiceover. You're in a room for like maybe a few hours voicing a character that I've never heard of under a pseudonym. Like they never tell you like you're doing the Batman series because they don't want anybody to know. And because I don't know anything about comic books, I'm like, oh, Lady Shiva, okay. Like what does she do? And then like a year and a half later, somebody comes up to me with a DVD to sign, and I'm like, I don't remember doing that.
Are you sure they're like Google?
Yeah, they Google me. Yeah, they prove it to me on IMDb.
Yeah, it's good to
But
have your
anyway,
phone,
so
right?
I am the forgetful actress, and yeah, and I do a lot of action stuff because of my black belt in karate. There's strong for you.
Literally strong female women who will be kind to us this afternoon at the convention. Guys, behave yourselves. We have a warrior. I'm Stephanie Young. I'm a voice actress, and thankfully have found sort of my niche has been with all of the strong women, not all of them, but many strong female characters in anime. I voice characters like Olivier Armstrong in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Yay! Nico Robin in One Piece, Claire and Claymore. I love magical girls, I do, but I'm so thankful that that's the world that I get to live in when I work with these really, really strong women. And I'm really glad to be here today, talk with you guys.
Hi, everybody. My name is Peter J. Wacks. I was a child actor, game designer, comic scripter. I write novels now, and I manage Kevin's Press. And the book that I'm going to point to is not out yet. It's called Villainy, written with Stephen L. Sears, who is the co-executive producer and one of the writers for Xena Warrior Princess. Wow. And we really wanted to bring the Xena-Gabrielle relationship and some of the strengths and key pieces of them into some new characters. Actually got to learn a lot from him. It was amazing. But yeah, that's that. So I'm holding up, imagine a red cover with a big V, a big black V on it in my hand.
Oh, it looks so cool.
Isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
this art, oh yeah.
Wow.
Great, so
And that's it.
Yeah, so where to from here?
Should we go to Paul?
Question.
Paul, you want to ask your question to that
Trigger gets to
non-existent
go.
microphone?
Yes. All right, this is more of an opinion for each of you to give on this question.
No.
Succinct.
Which do you you all feel are the most positive and negative female role models in pop culture, characters and such? Like, for instance, I like, I think Katniss Everdeen is a good positive, Hunger Games, and I think also from a positive role model but is flawed, Jessica Jones is a good character, and one of the worst, Bella Swan from Twilight. So every one of you, what's your opinion on who do you think is a positive female role model, regardless of their flaws, as well as negative? State one negative, state one positive.
Okay. Growing up Asian, I didn't have a lot of great role models that I could look up to. I grew up with like Cinderella and Barbie and all those blonde, blue-eyed, not again, nothing against blondes and blue eyes here, but growing up thinking that was sort of what beauty was supposed to be. And I remember my mom telling me a story how she caught me sitting in front of the mirror when I was about 4 years old, pouting, and I said, "How come I don't have blonde hair and blue eyes?" And she says, "Because you're Chinese." But I think those sort of role models are changing now. It's everybody is sort of bringing in women of color and whatnot, and then also that whole thing about women having to be saved by the prince, that whole sort of Disney world. I think that's sort of going away too, and I think people are starting to write women who can save themselves and other people as well. So I think in general things are changing. I don't know if I have I guess my first experience with a strong woman role model might have been Wonder Woman.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. That's it. Bad on Barbie, good on Wonder Woman.
And you talk about their flaws, which definitely make them interesting and relatable. I think it's important when we have our heroines that have struggles and things that they have to overcome. Definitely a big fan of Wonder Woman growing up. But, a character that I loved when I was little, who maybe I related to her because she was the youngest and I was the youngest in my family, was Lucy in the Chronicles of Narnia. I loved her.
I thought you meant Lucille Ball.
And another heroine. We should all, what an amazing comic actress, another good one. But Lucy in the Chronicles of Narnia, she was brave, she was very young, and definitely not someone that they would look to save the universe. But, very naive, but then she grew and was very clever and smart. And that's a character just that comes to mind. And I think that we are seeing so many more, female characters they're strong, that are very popular for young audiences now. Just our Hermione Grangers and Katniss, and definitely in anime, that's a world that I live in quite a bit. There's so many. And it's interesting, I come to these panels and when we discuss this topic, and that's where I live. Female character after female character. And I'm in awe of them sometimes. When I was voicing Olivier in Brotherhood, it was difficult for me at first. And this is interesting because she was so beautiful, and that makes no sense. I thought that maybe there should be a softer side to her, which is completely, it doesn't go with the story, of course, but my director, Mike McFarlane, who's fantastic, just told me, nope, try it again, nails, more nails, we need nails. And it took a while just to get used to, she was so tough. But I was just so impressed by her. Every time I go into a session, and the writing for that show is just fantastic. But as far as negative, I don't know. And some people come down on characters like a Wonder Woman, like, well, look what she's wearing. I think that's ridiculous. I think that there is a lot of strength in the feminine, and there's a lot of power in the feminine that we need to celebrate, that many authors and artists celebrate, and wonderful actresses like Kelly who portray these characters on cinema and on stage.
Even if you can't remember who they are.
That's what Google's for. Most of us just flew in here, right? We get a pass, and maybe another cup of coffee. But I love that which makes us different sometimes as men and women will give us, strength in its own way. And again, I think that the feminine form is beautiful and glorious and powerful and lovely in its own right. And the male form as well, in a different way.
Well, and I think you guys have pointed out some really interesting and complex female characters, and I think a lot of it's coming out because there are more women writers who are doing it, and the women writers can create the interesting women characters. For the longest time, there were all men writers, and the men were finally told, let's meet a different market, write strong female characters, which the men interpreted as Conan with boobs. Who were
Red
strong, kick-ass warrior princesses who fought monsters and basically got attacked by bigger and more muscular men who wanted to rape them, but then they ended up beating them. Then Frank Herbert in 1963 wrote Jessica in Dune, which was a really, really strong female character who had all kinds of complexities and did great things, but she didn't go and beat people up and smash them and cut off parts of their anatomy. So that was a whole different thing. And on two different things on the bad side, the men who wrote strong female characters, and I'm being very generalizing, of course, but the men who wrote the strong female characters wrote the strong female villainesses who were like ultra sexy sorceresses who used sex to dilute the male character, and he was able to overcome his temptations and then win in the end.
What's wrong with that?
I was about to
Well,
say.
if I'm the guy...
Another day at the office, my friend. In fiction.
But then there's the other, I don't know if you guys have read much of Robert A. Heinlein at all, a big classic. And I got so annoyed reading Heinlein because he was so sexist that he would have his characters, his women characters who were incredibly intelligent, incredibly competent, who spent all their time going, I can't wait to find a man to get married.
Oh, wow.
And I just went, yeah, it's not even working for me, and I'm not even an Asian girl trying to grow up and trying to fit into things. So I think that a lot of it is the requirements are much more complex now. You have to come up with a Katniss, or you have to come up with somebody who's much more than just Conan with boobs or a seductress or something, that there's a lot more to it.
Right. Get in touch with your inner Jane Eyre.
Yeah. So I think that the second half of this is going to get me lynched. So I'm going to start with the strong. When I'm looking at characters, not only from the writing perspective, but from the consumer perspective, because I'm a huge geek. I watch all the shows. I read everything I can. I really do consume epic amounts of fiction. A book or two a day. If you've seen it, I've probably seen it also, because part of my writing process is that Netflix is playing in the background just to keep part of my brain engaged on something else. Wow. So, wide library. The single strongest female that I have found, the one that I point out the TV and say to my daughter, that is an example of how to grow into making your own choices and controlling your own destiny, is Donna Noble. On Doctor Who, she starts off basically running around going, I have to find a man, I have to find a man, I have to find a man to get married to. And by the end of the arc, she is stronger than the Doctor, making choices, saving the universe when he fails, without resorting to violence, without resorting to anything. She does it by owning her own destiny. And owning your own destiny to me is the ultimate form of strength. It's not about muscle, it's not about intelligence, it's about owning the choices that you make. Which is why Katniss Everdeen is my example of bad. She makes two choices in the story arc and everything else is a reaction. And I love the fact that she fights, but she doesn't actually make active decisions and active choices. She chooses to save her sister, and then she chooses to shoot Snow. Spoilers.
I haven't seen the last one.
Really?
They're books. They've been out for...
But does
read
Bella
the
end up
series.
with Edward
Okay.
or no?
Right. Sorry, she chooses Jacob over Edward. What? Well, no, she makes two active choices, and everything else is a reaction. It's a oh, this is happening. Okay, I'll do this to try and survive. Okay, I'll do this to try and survive. At no point does she step back and say, I'm going to own my destiny.
But the courage that's there to continue, and it's a tough game. Tough game. But I can agree with you that we do not always want to be reactionary creatures, that we want to make choices, and you're right. I could see imparting that to your daughter. But the courage that is there, I will fight for Katniss a little bit there, even though I haven't finished the story, I've not read the books. But I don't know, I was always impressed with that, and her athleticism and skill, even though it's not all part of that, but that's still definitely is part of her strength. That's impressive.
Good question, Paul. Thank you. Anyone else? I see a hand.
Step up to the microphone. No,
You don't have to.
You don't have to. There's no
There's no
mic.
mic. There's no mic.
I guess my question is to both of you guys, females, as voice actresses and actresses. What type of strong female character do you like to play as? Because you know, sometimes like as a Scorpion King, there's the femininity,
Right.
and sexy, or do you like to play the other strong female characters? Kind of rising up now, which I really like to see, which is you don't really have to use your femininity or be sexy. You can just be strong. So you're not like any of the other characters. So do you have a preference for voicing and acting?
You want to go first?
You know, I do enjoy both, to be perfectly honest. I do, and I love to see, you know, smart, sharp characters come up that don't necessarily use their femininity. But I also, I don't know, I love it. I love, like I said, the feminine, and if there is a degree of sexuality or sensuality, not that they're just using that to get what they want, because to me, that sexuality, it's not a forced thing, it's not a pushed thing as a tactic, it's just how they operate, usually with a great deal of confidence that comes across. I think of Nico Robin, one of my favorite characters that I voice, and there's so much depth within that character. She's so vulnerable. Not in the beginning, for those of you that know the show of One Piece, but the vulnerability that does exist within her and the self-doubt, and yet she ends up relying on her friends and her community to help pull her through eventually once she develops that trust with them, is such a beautiful thing. But she's just naturally, and of course she's drawn beautifully, but her femininity that does exist with her power and her strength, to me, is such a beautiful thing that coexists. But it's not like, you know, Arachne and Soul Eater, to me, you know, she's all just dripping with it, and her black gown and her glass of red wine, which is a whole lot of fun, I'm not gonna lie,
I have to
right?
admit, I love that too.
Whole lot of fun, a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I got to play an awesome character named Cheshire on Young Justice, right? Such a great show, I can't believe we're gone. But it was such a fun character for me to voice. Like, I don't get to do a lot of character-y stuff because I'm just an actress girl who happened to fall into voice acting. And I'm more like on camera first. But with this one, I got to do this very sort of syrupy, you know, very sarcastic, and I loved it. I just licked the microphone. That was gross.
She really.
Ew! I'm so gonna get the Comic-Con crud.
We're auctioning this off.
But anyway, but that was such a fun character for me to play. I don't think there's anything wrong with using sexuality as as part of the character, as long as it's not the only tool. But I also get to voice Karai on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who's not sexy at all because it's on Nickelodeon. But I get to be really powerful and strong and, you know, beat up on boys and you know, it's just I just love doing both characters. But to be able to like sort of layer it with the sexiness is kind of a fun thing to be able to do. I mean, we're women.
I know. Celebrate celebrate. I
Right?
mean, but say, you know,
Hello.
you should be in that outfit in the Scorpion King. You really should. It's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. But it's nice to have
We
both
agree she
existing.
should be in that outfit.
I think the guys are okay with that, right? Good question.
Back there.
Oh boy. You have a visual.
Yeah, look at that. Prepared. What is that? I can't see. I don't have my glasses.
You remember Nina Tucker?
My lost daughter puppy. Is that why the wig is on the puppy?
Tucker?
Okay.
Gosh, help me out.
He turns his daughter into a chimera.
Oh, right. All right, what is your question?
I was gonna ask how did you feel about me being Father of the Year?
I will say, speaking of, well, congratulations, Father of the Year. Whoa, what?
Wait, is this one of those that you forgot you ever did? So I'm not the only one,
I know,
right?
you're not the only one.
Okay.
You get a pass. Like, how many years ago? But speaking of Father of the Year, which I know some of you may have children appear, but when it comes to the strength of femininity, I think I've experienced it more than any other way than through having a child. Not the process itself, but just having a child and being a mother at this point. So when we talk about the strong female form, I want to give a shout out to all the mothers out there, because it's self-explanatory. But I think that is an aspect that would come up in this conversation, along with the sensual and the sexual and the strong and the warriors, and those that create the foundations and along.
But do they
with
have to
partners.
be separate? Because it almost sounds like you're saying like mother and sexy, sensual are two different things.
Because that's how we get there, right?
Right. Girl,
Definitely. You may not.
I'm still trying not to get there.
Plenty of time.
As you guys mentioned, like there is a lot of progress towards creating strong female characters, but I still think there's a lot of development that still needs to be made. What do you guys think is something that, let's say, like some male writers may still not grasp about creating strong, complex female characters?
I think we're kind of at a place in society where we're all trying to figure that out at the moment. You know, it used to be that women had a very sort of strict place in society and men had their place in society. And I think now it's a great time where women and men are sort of like trying to find the balance. And you guys write all about this. Why don't you sort of say what you think?
Well, I think we're allowed to have different kinds of female characters now when they were much more limited and stereotyped before. And what just occurred to me is we watch Buffy all the time, okay? And Buffy was a kick-ass, sexy vampire killer, but you know what? I thought Willow was damn hot too.
Right.
You know? And she was the librarian nerd. I mean, and of course I like redheads, but I thought Willow was pretty darn sexy too. So I'm one of the other things that struck me is after watching, you probably haven't seen it because it's an obscure movie, The Force Awakens. It struck me after I watched it that they could have done so much wrong with Rey to make her sexy. They could have made her scantily clad running around in the desert. They could have had her bare midriff. They could have had her tight boobs. She could, all kinds of things. And I realized after watching the movie that she's really hot and really sexy, and they do none of the Hollywood exploitive tricks to make her hot and sexy. She just is, because she's a powerful, kick-ass, resourceful. I think she's a great example because they didn't have to put her in a bikini. She was in her full-on, basically looks like the Mummy, wrapped up all the time. And it occurred to me, think about Red Sonja. What warrior chick wears a male bikini and goes out and fights?
I have.
Okay. And you did very well.
And find a TV show that does not have a female spy, in high heels, like scaling a building in high heels. It's like, wait, what? Why? What?
That is a skill.
And then when you actually got a fight in them,
Right.
dude. Yeah. I've done it all. I do anything for money.
And we have a joke when my wife and I were watching these things, because you have supposedly the nerdy, shy wallflower who can't get dates. But she is an absolute drop-dead gorgeous actress who has her hair pulled back and she wears glasses. So obviously
Yes.
she's not attractive at all. And
Glasses and a ponytail.
Yeah.
Kevin, I'm going to jump in and say that actually your example is really, really a good example, because they show her vulnerability as well in The Force Awakens.
Oh, yeah.
Rey. They show her vulnerability, and I think that the big thing that people miss isn't just necessarily about females, but it's about characterization. It's getting in, and we've become so obsessed with strength. How do we show that this piece of diversity is strong, or this piece of diversity is strong, or that this piece of mainstream is strong, that we forget about the vulnerability, and what makes strength is balance.
Right. Fighting through the vulnerability
Yeah.
and still being fearless.
Exactly.
I think even the problem, not really a problem, but the challenge, it's with male and female characters, just finding good characters, good writing, good story. But we're always striving, right? What did I hear? I came to y'all's panel that was said. It was a really good panel, but you said something about, it was the other author at the end of the table, that your next book is your greatest book. Just keep going, keep going.
You
And
haven't
I'm sure
written
as
your
writers
best
you
book
feel
yet.
that way. You're always trying to strive to, communicate and, relate either what's going on in reality or in these other worlds that are appealing and inspire people. So, and there's so many ways we can do that, right? But I think it is nice that we are in a time where, strong as also being, portrayed through intelligence is really popular. I love it that, the nerd girls that maybe are not always portrayed as sexy, but they're winning so often in the stories. They're overcoming. Hermione keeps coming back to mind. The geek girl that knows it all and is at the front of the class, raising her hand constantly. What she becomes is such a strong part of that, that group. So,
Super hot.
yeah, she of course she's beautiful.
Yeah.
Started out little Emma. So yes.
It's so funny that you mentioned Hermione Granger because that's who I was going to talk about. But what was your ideas of? It's so sad that they didn't put it in the movies, but I loved in the novels when she had this fuse movement for it to free the elf slaves, and how it didn't work for her in the beginning, but then later on in the future, she really created a change in her personal community. And even the actress herself, she has that movie, that feminist movie in the United Nations, and it's just so inspiring. But versus like characters like Katniss, who doesn't even want to help. In the end, she does, but she didn't want to get involved in any way, shape, or form in the propaganda to which side believe in. So, what do you think versus Hermione Granger and Katniss?
So you want me to weigh in on Hermione versus Katniss?
Yeah.
It would probably help if I have not read the Hunger Games books. I do apologize. I know. Can you still say?
I haven't read anything.
I apologize.
No, I'm feeling doubly bad about that spoiler I accidentally dropped.
I don't know when I'm going to get to see it. My husband and I laugh. It's like we've seen a few movies in the past 2 years.
Right.
He's 2 years old. But
So, your ideas about Hermione Granger?
well, the thing I love about Hermione is just that even talking about vulnerability in the beginning. So thank you. Talking about the vulnerability that she shows. She's insecure in many areas socially, even though she's brilliant and she is gifted, and her destiny is to do, great things and to find love. It's a wonderful. The scope of her character, I think, is beautiful. Katniss, I don't know as well. I was just impressed just with she's so raw. And again, from what I know, which is limited, I'm far from being an expert on this story, but just I love the courage that she shows. And someone else might be better to weigh in on this than myself. You've probably read both of these series twice.
Well, okay, so I personally actually really resonated and identified with Hermione because I was an activist when I was young. I was out there with Colorado Clean Water Action, canvassing, trying to clean up the rivers in Colorado and like finding the cause and going out there and marching from door to door and fighting for what I believed in. So I loved it. I mean, that's amazing. And you kind of nailed it with Katniss, and you definitely nailed it from my perspective with Katniss, is that, she doesn't really become an active player in her own destiny. She doesn't fight for change. She just kind of gets swept along with it.
Yeah.
And
Talk about sexy. There's nothing sexier than someone with a passion.
yeah.
You got to have a passion. Yeah. If you're just, like you say, reacting, how boring a person are you? Right?
Isn't-
Able to
but
take
isn't
some
that
risk.
What a lot of the things was wrong with female characters for so long is that in fiction, the male characters were the active ones and the females were the passive ones. That they were the I have to be rescued ones. And that was what was wrong. And I think that now, in fact, our production manager at our publishing house just posted a really cool thread on Facebook that inspired some really thinking on my part, where she posted the character arc for male characters is like the hero's journey, and it's a certain character arc that we see over and over again, but that too many people are trying to put strong female characters into the male character arc of where it's going. The female character arc, I don't know what it is. I mean, it's an entirely different thing. It shouldn't be like a quest where if you do enough good things, you will find a man and get married and have babies. That there are
That
other...
sounds like punishment to me.
That is how you win.
But that made me really think, because I've been a writer since I was 5 years old. I've written 130 books. I live in doing stories.
Do something with your
and
life.
I know about character arcs and plots, and I never before thought is there a difference between the strong female character arc and the strong male character arc? There's one, this may be apocryphal, but I've heard it so many times that I'm suspecting it's true. You all know the movie Alien, the original Alien, and that when Ridley Scott was making the movie Alien, that he had originally cast the character of Ripley as a man. And somebody read it, and the only female in the entire movie was the other engineer, who all she does is go eek when the monster eats her. And they said, you have no strong female characters in here, and so instead he cast Sigourney Weaver as Ripley using the same script, so that it was written as a male, but they put a female actress in it.
And how much stronger is it when she meets that little girl?
Well, and that's an entirely different, the second story, and I think that character arc's great. I can't actually believe that the slow undressing underwear scene at the end was written for a man. But still, that's a really cool thing, that,
Story of my
that
life.
somebody who wrote a very strong character as a script and then cast a woman in the role instead of a man, and it turns out Ripley's one of these great female characters in science fiction.
Anyone else? Yes.
As male writers, how do you avoid writing like cliche female characters?
You just think.
We just think we avoid writing cliched
Right.
characters.
You might as well be asking me how I avoid writing cliche male characters. Every character has a story of their own to tell, the way they think, the way they feel, how that impacts the decisions they make. I don't write to a gender. I write to a decision-making process, to an emotive process, and let the characters explore their own life in that framework, which is a lot of big words. You know, really, everybody's unique, and you have to write your unique character, I guess is the better way to say that, and let them play in the story. And whether they are a male or female, if you are true to that, then you're going to have a good character, which is more important than having a good X, Y, or Z on gender or anything else. Kevin? Do you want to chime in?
I nodded.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
I'm just doing the passive response. Well, there are tropes for a reason, just as there are cliches for a reason, because that ends up matching a lot of people who are out there, or characters who are out there. And I think, like what Peter's saying, if we're involved enough in the story and we develop our characters so that it's a real person rather than just a pinup or a librarian or some evil sorceress, those are cliches, and they're too easy to write. And they're boring for you guys to read, and frankly, they're boring for us to write because there's no challenge, there's no interesting thing to it. I think it falls back on being a writer and understanding your character and your stories, that you write what needs to be in there rather than just insert sexy sorceress here and insert scantily clad female muscular warrior here. And it's just, we don't want to do, that's boring to write.
Yeah.
No, he's just nodding.
And I agree with you. I do, gentlemen. But I also wonder if there were some studio execs sitting up here, how they would answer that question.
Well, see, I think that's
Right.
one of the problems with that. They only want the lowest common denominator.
Unfortunately, it all comes down to dollars and what's going to sell and what people are attracted to. So as long as people are attracted to the scantily clad, bikini-wearing sorceress, I have a job.
There's
I
nothing
will
wrong
write
with
more
that.
parts for you, Kelly.
Thank you.
You know, there's a TV series called Pushing Daisies, which was a continuation of Dead Like Me. And some of the cleverest writing I've ever seen on television, and neither of them made it past season 2.
Why does that happen over and over with good shows, right?
Because people don't want to have to think. When they watch television, they just want to zone. Yeah.
And by the way, you know, if you ever want to pick them up, watch them on the CW or Netflix or wherever. Also great examples of strong females. Georgia Lass, the main character of Dead Like Me, she's so awesome, so complex. And Charlotte Charles in Pushing Daisies, also one of my favorite female leads. So.
Here's something I want to ask you guys, because back to Star Wars. I just heard that Disney is discontinuing any sort of figures and representations and costumes of the Princess Leia slave costume.
Why?
Because they considered it sexy and exploitive, and it demeaned women. And I'm thinking, so she was held by Jabba the Hutt, but I remember her strangling the crap out of that guy, and he makes her dress like that, and she kills him. That doesn't seem like weak and exploitive to me, but I think it's kind of a politically correct thing that they're trying to push.
They're really removing all of the memorabilia and everything?
Well, I read it on the internet, so it has
Must
to be true.
Must be true. Which is a shame, and I don't think something like that needs to be pulled, especially when in light of the story, it makes us, he's disgusting to begin with, but we hate him even more, and she is a slave. Right. I think it just helps, promote that idea within the story. And let's face it, I'm sure Carrie Fisher's like, I looked so good. I want you to remember that day. She's like, go pull that up, people.
But in fact,
go,
if I remember, and I should remember because I've written 50 Star Wars books, but there's also in Jabba's palace, is there not also a scantily clad big fat green lady that has like rolls of fat all over the place? Well, I thought that was cool because it's Jabba the Hutt. Who knows what a big fat slug finds attractive. So.
I have another solution. Maybe a Hutt should capture Finn and put him in a gold bikini so that we have cross-gender merchandising.
Can I just say, Princess Leia, Slave Leia, what do you call when guys do Slave Leia costumes? It's my absolute favorite. I don't know why, but I get such a kick out of that.
I've not seen that.
Is that wrong?
Oh, that's...
No, okay. I don't know when I'm being politically incorrect sometimes.
But actually now we're getting back to something kind of cool though, because there's also a big flap right now because in all of the Star Wars merchandise, which that there is every possible merchandise in the universe, that for some reason they've cut Rey out of almost all of it.
Why?
That there is no Rey action figure, there are no Rey costumes, there are no Rey. It's a huge scandal right now. In the Star Wars monopoly, there is no Rey. There's every other character in the movie, but not her.
The monopoly was a big one, but the Disney store actually started to carry merchandising because that was a big thing for me. I wanted to go get my daughter. I wanted to go get her Rey toys. And we actually had to hunt around for a while, but we did find the Rey action figure, and we did find some of those things eventually.
But number-wise, there are far fewer made featuring her, and nobody can quite figure it out because, I'm sure everybody here in the room would go, well, duh, she's a main character of the movie that you would, especially Disney. How many Disney princess things have they come up with? But the number of Star Wars Episode 7 action figure sets has everybody but Rey. Kind of like the Star Trek Collector's Captain's Plate had every captain except for Cisco, the black one, for some reason. So it's very strange with merchandising because we're fans. We want everything.
Can I tell you something interesting about my action figure? I had an action figure for Scorpion King. And they did these like body scans and stuff of me, and it was supposed to be based on actual body scans. And then when the actual doll, the figurine comes out, first thing I did was I lifted up the skirt to see what it looked like. And there's this huge space in between my legs. And I was like, clearly that is not from a body scan. And because yours can do the center splits. They made it a point that my character be able to do the center splits. Not that I even do any action in Scorpion King. I wield a sword a couple of times and then I stab a guy with a fork. But But for some reason, they found that it was absolutely necessary for my action figure to be able to do the center splits. And of course, Michael Clark Duncan had one, and Dwayne Johnson had one, and neither of them did the center splits. Interesting.
And did you lift up the skirts in those action figures to see what they look like?
They didn't have skirts.
Oh.
The negative space.
The Princess Leia thing, 'cause I had no idea about that. Well, Princess Jasmine is like in a bikini top, but I guess it's not sexual at all because she's a cartoon. I mean, if they're gonna ban Leia's costume, then why not ban Jasmine's? Or Ariel. Or Ariel. Yeah, Ariel's naked.
Oh my God, yeah, she's not even wearing pants.
Saucy mermaid.
She gets legs.
And then it doesn't make sense because kids are most likely to watch those movies than Star Wars.
I'm curious, your daughter, because we're also talking about, this demographic that you happen to live with at home. Who are some of the characters that she brings to you that
Well,
she
how
looks
old is
up
she
to?
first?
She's 12.
11? Oh, 12.
She's 12.
Young.
And actually, right now,
She is not a typical girl, though.
no, no, she is not. So, yeah, she's doing like pre-testing for Duke University right now.
my
So
goodness.
she's not a typical girl.
Proud papa.
Yes, very. But she is right now. Her big lobby is for there to be a female doctor. She really wants to see the doctor cast as a woman in the TARDIS, running around, and she's hoping that the next doctor. That's her big lobby. That's like the big champion. Like, Dad, this has to happen. There has to be a woman
Dad,
doctor.
can you make this happen? You're a writer. Get in with these people. Let's work this out.
Because I mean, all the Doctor Who books that I've gotten to write. Of
Oh,
course,
well,
I've-
go work in the
I
series.
am
Go
so
work on
down
the
with that. I am
television
so
show.
down with that.
She should be a writer.
As long as it's not the female version of Peter Capaldi. It needs to be one of the young hot doctors.
Oh God, what's her name? What's her name? From from Absolutely Fabulous, Joanna Lumley. No, she in the Curse of the Fatal Death, she was the Doctor. It's a spoof, and she was brilliant. She was like perfect.
How are we
So-
on time? Have we gone like 20
Well,
minutes over?
Are we supposed to be done at 5:30 or 5:45? Okay.
Oh,
So
we
they're
got time.
Another
hour-long
question?
panels?
I
Full
see.
hour panels?
Yeah.
Over an hour.
No, we have a question over here.
Do we have a question? Where?
What are some things from a lot of the anime that you've been a part of that could be sort of like inspiration for American novelists and comic writers? Like,
Oh, wow.
I know nothing about this.
like Full Metal Alchemist, that the original manga was written by a woman, and I think actually like half all manga in Japan are written by female authors. So, what do you think the American and British writers and authors can learn from that?
Well, just the fact it's good work, right? It's interesting, it's creative, the different worlds that we live in, which can be said of a great deal of science fiction as well. But this is a world that I live in quite a bit as an anime voice actress, and I'm always just so in awe of the diversity of the characters, how interesting they are, just the different plot lines and character arcs that we have this joke at Funimation, where I work primarily in Dallas, that in the show One Piece, and the phrase is, because One Piece, anything can happen. So you have these, crazy, interesting, out-of-the-box ideas that are just accepted. Banana gators. What? That's the first time I'd ever seen these crazy creatures, which again, that does exist already in, American, writing and across the globe. But I just think the fact that it's good. It's good work, and the good work inspires other good work to come about. But there are definitely many strong female characters that we've talked quite a bit about today, but in the anime world, quite a bit. Now there's also the other that exists. And, I voiced the character of Junko in Desert Punk. That was my first big lead role. And she, her chest was her main thing. And I think the size of it increased or decreased within, each episode. It was crazy. I'm like, wow, they are 3 times bigger. Oh, of course, she's
Which
running.
one is this again? We didn't write it down.
Yeah. Desert Punk. Get in touch with the mind of your 13-year-old, boy self, and you will be right there. The humor is just...
I've never left my 13-year-old myself. Thank you.
Very good, very good. But it's it's hilarious. But I think the complexity of the stories and another thing that I love that happens a great deal in anime is that we find that the children are the wise ones, and the children are the ones that save the day often, and I love that. I know when I look at my son, who's only 2, I'm already learning from him. It's amazing how they open up your mind and your soul and your spirit, and I don't think, you do not have to have children to have these kinds of experiences, but when you do, it is exquisite. And I think there is something that is beautiful about that. But I love the strength in the children. They're always saving the day. And I love that. I guess that could be a whole panel. I mean, that's a fantastic question. Strong kids, strong characters, strong writing, strong artwork. And then when you look at the manga, I always go back to the manga and Claymore. It's just so gorgeous, so beautifully drawn, and I think it's represented well in the anime as well. That's a great question. Thank you.
We've been talking a lot about fictional females, but is there any real world females that are inspirations to you?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. It's funny. I was just talking to someone about Maya Angelou the other day, who this is just the first one that comes to mind. And why were we talking about Maya? I mean, other than being a brilliant poet, but just her contribution to the art. But I remember, I found my way. One of the reasons I got into voice work was in a theater speaking class in college. And I read a Maya Angelou poem, and someone said, your voice is, may have something going on there. And then it kind of did. That, there's so many brilliant women.
Oprah is my god.
Oprah. Mm-hmm.
Don't laugh. Oprah's my god.
You can't laugh at Oprah.
No.
She's no joke. She's a game changer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm going to throw Mother Jones out there. Early 1900s through mid 1900s labor organizer, and she stepped into a man's world and just changed the entire world based on what she wanted and what she thought was fair for all of society. Amazing story around her.
Sarah Palin.
Oh.
Just kidding.
Thanks so much for coming. No, I'm kidding.
This was a great panel.
He's clearly kidding.
But
you meant to say Elizabeth Warren. Wait, what?
Tina
No?
Fey,
Tina Fey.
who often satires Palin, is actually super awesome.
Tina Fey. Yeah.
Well, and boy, I really don't talk politics. Sarah Palin proves that even women politicians can be dingbats too. I was thinking of...
She's the equalizing force for Dan Quayle?
Well, yeah, that actually is pretty good. I think Elizabeth Warren is pretty impressive. Again, not to even pick one side of politics or another, but I think that what she has done and what she stands for and how she sticks to her guns is pretty cool. My wife, there.
Oh.
My wife.
Wait, is she right here?
No, she's not even here, so I get double brownie points. I get double brownie, but
Okay.
she'll ask Peter later on. But
You weren't supposed to know that she was...
yeah,
no, she won't.
Anyone else?
Hey. What about these movies or novels? They sometimes get this labeled as a feminist book or movie. Like I just recently saw Mad Max and I loved it, and it was just nominated for an Oscar. But people call it a feminist movie, and when people say that, they're like, "Oh no, I don't want to watch that because that's a feminist movie," and they think it downputs men or something.
that was a feminist movie.
Why do you think these, when they're labeled feminist, people backtrack on it and they refuse to watch it?
I think it's because they don't understand it, and feminism is not the opposite of men. Or that if a woman is feminist or strong and holding to her convictions, and that does not take away from men in any kind of way. Just trying to be equal is a good thing. And that doesn't mean that, I'm from Texas, I'm from the South. You can open my door. I don't have a problem with that. But when you look at the core of feminism and just equality and women's rights, that's really what we're talking about, rather than it's us versus them. Gosh, and your question is on, there's just so many, what women have contributed that, again, it isn't anti-male. It's just, contributing to community and society. You know, the Rosa Parks of the world, or the young woman I was thinking about, you know, in Little Rock, that was one of the first students to be integrated, you know, into the school system. You know, women that have just, they're not celebrity, but have done amazing, incredible things. But I know when I think of feminism, I think people that maybe don't understand it, or you know, think of it as a very in a simple way, that you know, learn more about that. Because if you had your daughter, you would want her to be strong and stand up for herself and intelligent. And those are the things that, you know, I think some of us think of.
This is a college course.
This will be quick. I think that you're reading too much into it if they don't want to watch it because it's a feminist movie. I think that people don't want to watch anything that's an ist movie, because then it seems like it's a political diatribe, whether it's a socialist movie or a communist movie or racist movie or any. We don't want to watch a movie if it's labeled as some kind of an activist movie. We want to watch something that has something worth watching. So just because it's a feminist movie, I don't think that specifically.
That's exactly it. And you know, if I hear that something is a feminist movie, personally, I'm like, oh, cool, someone's scared of it. I should see this.
Yeah, really.
What was it? I missed it.
No, I didn't see it.
Somebody look it up.
Well, I'm sure she was trying to honor him and, you know, and saying this quote. And now she's going to.
Yeah, people get very sensitive these days to everything, and I think it's their own point of view. You know, yeah. I mean, everybody's a mirror, right?
I have been personally struggling with the fact that our society is becoming more and more polarized. It is social justice versus conservatism. It is Democrat versus Republican. It is all of these, if you're not us, then you're them, and them is always bad. And as with Katniss, one of my big crusades is personal choice. I think that us and them are idiotic concepts, and that you are going to make some choices like me and some choices not like me, and that the only way that I can ever communicate with people is if I learn to watch for the distinctions of both types of choices, so that I can understand why people are different and why people are the same. And as a creator, I strive to, if I am lucky, get a little bit of that across in my work, so that maybe somebody else can spot that distinction too and not hate someone who is a them as much.
As an actor, I think it's our job to sort of be able to view the character and their point of view. And so oftentimes you're auditioning for or playing characters that you don't necessarily agree with, but you have to understand where they're coming from and their point of view. So it has to make you a much more open person to be able to portray these characters.
Someone's got to play Judas sometimes, you know, or Jezebel.
I'm an assassin all the time. It's not like I'm going around killing people.
There is nothing wrong with a man being feminist. I think it is to our mutual advantage. The criticism that she's facing is that she's using his death to further her feminist agenda.
People will always be able to get wound up about something, and you just have to go get a life.
It's their issue.
If he said it, obviously he would be happy that it was being put out there.
Oh, right, exactly, on that same line of thinking.
Then again, there are a lot of things that I have said that I wouldn't be so happy if it was put out there. But you know what? I gotta own it.
All right, thank you all. We're wrapped up.